The sky darkened over New York City on a clear Tuesday afternoon. At first, people thought it was an unexpected storm. Then they looked up. A massive ship, black as night and shaped like a floating mountain, blocked the sun. Traffic stopped. People poured out of buildings and stood in the streets looking up with open mouths. It wasn't just New York. Similar ships appeared over London, Beijing, Moscow, and 20 other major cities across the world. News channels showed the same scene playing out everywhere. Huge alien ships hanging in the sky, silent and threatening. Major Alan Wright sat in the control room at North American Aerospace Defense Command in Colorado. His coffee had gone cold, hours ago. Since the ships appeared, he hadn't moved from his station. The radar screens showed objects larger than anything humans had ever built, just sitting there in Earth's atmosphere. "Still no response to our communications," said Lieutenant Pete Johnson, rubbing his tired eyes. Alan nodded. 6 hours of trying every frequency, every possible greeting. Nothing. Then, without warning, every screen, phone, and television across, the world changed. The same image appeared everywhere. A tall being with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like an oil slick. Its face had no nose, just dark eyes and a small mouth. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English. "I am High Subjugator, Vrax of the Kreen Dominion. Your planet has resources we require. You will surrender these resources to us. You will provide labor as needed. You will submit to Kreen authority." The creature paused, its dark eyes unblinking. "Refusal is not advised. We have studied your weapons. They cannot harm us. We have studied your societies. They are divided and weak. You have 24 Earth hours to inform your leaders to surrender on behalf of your species. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our power." The screens went black, then returned to normal. For a few seconds, nobody in the command center spoke. "Get me the president," Alan finally said. 12 hours later, Dr. Olivia Patterson rushed through the halls of NASA's Research Center in Houston. Security was tighter than usual, with armed guards at every door. She showed her ID 4 times before reaching the emergency meeting room. "I need to see the alien transmission again," she told the room of nervous scientists and military officers. "There's something about their biology I noticed." They played the message. Olivia watched carefully, taking notes. When it ended, she looked up. Their body structure suggests they evolved in a high-pressure environment. See the reinforced chest, cavity, the way the joints are positioned, and look at the eye structure. Those are pressure adaptations. "What does that tell us?" asked General Frank Sanders. "Possibly nothing," Olivia admitted. "But species from high-pressure environments often have sensitivities to certain vibration patterns that wouldn't bother us at all. It's a long shot, but it might be important if things go badly." The general nodded. "Keep working on it. We need every possible advantage." In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The President of the United States, the Russian President, the Chinese Premier, and dozens of other heads of state sat around a large table, faces grim. "Their technology is clearly far beyond ours," said the British Prime Minister. "The scientists say their ships use materials we can't even identify. So we surrender," asked the French President. "Just like that? What choice do we have?" replied the German Chancellor. "You saw what happened in Australia." 3 hours earlier, when the Australian Prime Minister had publicly rejected the Kreen demands, one of the alien ships had fired a single beam of light at a small uninhabited island off the coast. The island was simply gone, not destroyed, not burning, just completely erased from existence. Meanwhile, in rural Montana, Farmer John Miller was having a very strange day. He hadn't seen the news yet. His old TV rarely worked, and he preferred it that way. He was out checking his fences when he saw them. 3 tall, 4-armed creatures placing some kind of metal pole into his north field. John wasn't one to get excited. He'd lived alone for 30 years, minded his business, and expected others to do the same. He walked over, shotgun resting casually over his arm. "This is private property," he called out when he got within earshot. The creatures turned, seeming surprised to see him. One made clicking sounds to the others. They ignored John and went back to their work. John frowned. He walked closer and noticed something odd. His old tractor was parked nearby, and every time the engine made that chugging sound it always made, the alien's pole device would spark and the lights on it would flicker. One of the creatures noticed too. It approached the tractor with what looked like a scanning device. When it got close, the tractor backfired loudly. The alien jumped back, making a high-pitched sound that John guessed was pain or surprise. Interesting, John thought. Very interesting. At NORAD, Alan Wright was on a secure call with Dr. Patterson. The president is meeting with the alien representative in 1 hour, he said quietly. They're going to accept the surrender terms. We need more time, Olivia insisted. I've been analyzing their biology. They have vulnerabilities, Alan. Their auditory processing is completely different from ours. Certain sound frequencies might incapacitate them without harming humans. It's too late for maybes, Olivia. Unless you have proof. I need access to your sound laboratories, the ones developed for sonic weapons research in the 90s. Alan hesitated. Those projects were shut down. But the labs still exist, Olivia pressed. With those resources, I could test my theory within days. We don't have days. We have hours. Then, get me what time you can. Delay the surrender somehow. Alan ended the call and stared at the wall. 20 years in the Air Force, and now he was considering what might amount to treason, delaying a presidential order during first contact with an alien species. But something about this felt wrong. The aliens had appeared too suddenly, made demands too quickly. It felt like they were rushing humans into a decision before we could think clearly. He picked up the phone again and called a number few people knew existed. This is Major Wright. Authorization code, Sierra Echo 94 Delta. I need to speak to Shadow Group immediately. We may have a way to fight back. In New York, the United Nations building was surrounded by Kreen guards. Inside, human leaders prepared to sign the document that would officially surrender Earth to alien control. What no one knew was that a small group of scientists, soldiers, and even a Montana farmer were about to change everything. Because as High Subjugator Vrax had told his commanders, these humans are primitive mammals. They will kneel before superior power as all lesser species do. He would soon learn how wrong he was. 6 months had passed since the Kreen arrived on Earth. The world was a different place now. Alien structures rose from the ground in every major city. Huge machines dug deep into the Earth, extracting minerals and resources. Humans worked in long lines, loading materials onto hovering platforms that carried them to the massive ships. The surrender had been signed by Earth's leaders after the Kreen destroyed 3 small islands as a demonstration. The aliens now controlled everything: food distribution, travel, communication. Fighting had broken out in the early weeks, but Kreen weapons quickly crushed any resistance. In what remained of Chicago, Captain Karen Martinez ducked behind a broken wall as a Kreen patrol hovered past. The city's downtown had been transformed into a processing center where the aliens extracted metals from buildings and infrastructure. Once the patrol passed, Karen signaled to her team, and they moved quickly through the shadows. Status report, she whispered into her radio when they reached the safety of an underground parking garage. Team 2 is in position near the water plant, came the reply from Eric Dawson, her second in command. The device is ready. Karen checked her watch. 20 minutes until we go. Make sure everyone has their ear protection. Their target was a water pumping station the Kreen had converted to process something from Lake Michigan. For weeks, they had watched as strange equipment was installed. Now they planned to destroy it. Karen thought back to her former life as a police officer. How simple things had seemed then. Now she led one of the largest resistance cells in North America, with nearly 100 fighters spread across the ruined city. In Washington, D.C., William Carter straightened his tie and checked his reflection. As the official human liaison to the Kreen administration, he wore the metal collar all human representatives were required to display. The aliens believed it showed his cooperation. They didn't know that inside the collar, he had hidden a small recording device. William walked through the halls of what had once been the White House, nodding respectfully to the Kreen guards. They mostly ignored him. To them, he was just another obedient human. "The subjugator will see you now," said a human assistant, another collared representative who worked directly for the aliens. William entered the Oval Office, which had been redesigned with strange angular furniture and dim greenish lighting that the Kreen preferred. High Subjugator Vrax sat behind a large black desk. "You have the production reports?" Vrax asked, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language. "Yes, Subjugator," William replied, placing a tablet on the desk. "All regions are meeting their quotas except the Midwest. We're having trouble with some of the equipment there." This was partly true. What William didn't mention was that the trouble was being caused by resistance fighters deliberately sabotaging Kreen machinery. "Increase labor in that sector," Vrax ordered. "I want production doubled by next month." "Of course, Subjugator." William made notes, his face a mask of compliance. "There is also the matter of food distribution. Some work camps are reporting shortages." "Irrelevant. Redirect remaining food to the most productive workers." William kept his expression neutral, though inside he felt sick. "As you wish." After the meeting, William returned to his small office and carefully removed the recording device from his collar. He connected it to a modified computer and encrypted the day's conversations, hiding them within what appeared to be standard production reports. These would be transmitted to resistance cells that could analyze Vrax's statements for useful information about Kreen plans and weaknesses. In a Kreen research facility outside Boston, Dr. Olivia Patterson carefully measured a liquid into a test tube. 2 Kreen guards watched her work, but they didn't understand what she was doing. To them, she was just studying Earth biology to help the Kreen better understand their new planet. In reality, Olivia was testing a compound that might amplify certain sound frequencies. Working with limited resources and constant surveillance, progress was slow. But during the night, when only 1 guard remained, she could sometimes conduct her real experiments. Her lab partner, Dr. Steve Rivera, created a distraction by dropping a tray of samples. While the guards went to investigate, Olivia quickly tested her latest compound on a small piece of Kreen technology she had managed to smuggle into the lab. When exposed to a specific frequency, the metal began to vibrate and then crack. Olivia hid her smile. It was working. At an underground base in the Rocky Mountains, Major Alan Wright, now considered a traitor by what remained of the U.S. government, led a team of soldiers and scientists. They had been testing devices based on John Miller's discovery about his tractor engine. "The prototype is ready," said John, who had become an unlikely but valuable member of the resistance. His farm knowledge had proven useful in finding low-tech solutions to fight the high-tech invaders. Alan examined the device. It looked simple, just a modified speaker with some of John's engine parts attached. "Let's test it." In a sealed chamber, they placed a piece of Kreen equipment they had captured in a raid. John activated the device. A low humming filled the air, barely noticeable to human ears. The Kreen technology sparked, smoked, and then stopped working completely. "It's not just their equipment," said Alan, reviewing test results. "According to Dr. Patterson's research, this frequency directly affects their nervous system. It causes them extreme pain without harming humans." "How many of these can we make?" asked a soldier. "With the parts we have?" "Maybe 100, John replied. "But if we can get the plans to other resistance cells..." Alan nodded. "We need to coordinate with William Carter. He has access to the Kreen communication system. If we can broadcast this frequency worldwide at the same time, we might have a chance." Back in Chicago, Karen's team was ready. They had planted their homemade explosive on the strange Kreen machinery at the water plant. As they retreated to a safe distance, Eric handed Karen the detonator. "This will slow down their operation for weeks," he said. Karen looked out at Lake Michigan, once beautiful and blue, now churning with alien machines. "It's not enough," she said quietly. "These small attacks, we're just annoying them. We need something bigger." Her radio crackled. "Captain, we've received a coded message from Command, Priority Level 1. Karen frowned. Level 1 messages were rare. What does it say? It says, "Prepare for Operation Soundwave. Details to follow." The wave comes in 30 days. Karen and Eric exchanged looks. For the first time in months, they felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. In Washington, William sent his final transmission of the day, embedding the latest plans from Vrax into an encrypted message. Then he looked out his window at the Kreen ship hovering over the National Mall. "Your time is coming," he whispered. "You commanded us to kneel, but you'll be the ones begging soon." The Nevada desert shimmered under the hot sun. Most people thought this area was empty now, abandoned after the Kreen invasion. They were wrong. Deep underground, in a forgotten government facility, Dr. Daniel Clark hadn't seen daylight in 3 weeks. He wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the controls on what used to be part of the HARP research array. Before the invasion, this equipment studied the upper atmosphere. Now Daniel had rebuilt it for a different purpose. "Try frequency 172.5, he said to his assistant Sam Wells. Sam adjusted the dial and activated the system. In a sealed chamber visible through a thick glass window, a piece of Kreen technology began to vibrate. Then something unexpected happened. The small sample of Kreen biological tissue next to it turned from its normal bluish color to a sickly yellow. "Did you see that?" Daniel asked, pressing his face against the glass. "It's not just affecting their tech. It's affecting their biology. Directly." Sam checked the readings. "The frequency causes some kind of neural disruption in their tissue. Based on these patterns, it would be extremely painful to them, but harmless to humans." Daniel grabbed his secure radio. "I need to contact Major Wright immediately. This changes everything." In Chicago, Karen Martinez led her team through the abandoned subway tunnels. The Kreen rarely came down here. The underground spaces seemed to make them uncomfortable. That made these tunnels perfect for resistance movements. Eric Dawson used a crowbar to open an old maintenance door, revealing a hidden room filled with radio equipment and weapons. "Welcome to our new headquarters," Karen announced to her team. "The Kreen can't detect signals from this deep underground." A radio operator handed Karen a message that had just arrived via their secure network. She read it, then looked up at her fighters. "We have new orders from command. All attacks on Kreen infrastructure are suspended for now. Instead, we need to gather these materials." She handed Eric a list. He scanned it, looking confused. "Speakers, amplifiers, old radio parts. Are we starting a rock band?" "Something better," Karen replied. "We're building weapons. According to this, scientists in Nevada have discovered a frequency that hurts the Kreen. We need to build devices that can broadcast it." Hope spread through the room. For the first time in months, they had a plan that might actually work against the invaders. In Washington, D.C., William Carter walked quickly through the rain. He had 5 minutes before his tracking collar would report that he was off his authorized path. The Kreen monitored all human representatives closely, but William had discovered a small gap in their surveillance system. He ducked into an old bookstore that had somehow survived the invasion. In the back, behind a shelf of dusty classics, a woman waited. "You're late," said Mary Phillips, who ran the Eastern Communication Network for the Resistance. "I can only stay 2 minutes," William replied, handing her a small data drive. "This contains the complete layout of the Kreen command ship, including the location of their central communication array." Mary's eyes widened. "How did you get this?" "I've been mapping it piece by piece during my required inspections. The Kreen don't think we're smart enough to memorize their technology or understand their ship designs." She took the drive. "This is exactly what Command needs for Operation Soundwave." "There's something else," William said, checking his watch nervously. "The Kreen are planning something big. They're building some kind of massive harvesting machine. Once it's operational, they'll strip Earth's resources completely within a year. We have less time than we thought." Mary nodded grimly. "Then we need to move up the timeline. I'll relay this to command." William hurried back out into the rain, making sure to return to his authorized route before the caller could report his deviation. At the mountain base, Alan Wright studied the information. coming in from resistance cells around the world. The pieces were falling into place. Daniel's discovery about the frequency affecting Kreen biology was the breakthrough they needed. John Miller looked over the design for the broadcasting device they had created. With these modifications, even old car radios and home stereo systems can be converted to emit the right frequency. Regular people can build them from common parts. How do we get the plans out to everyone? Asked a young soldier. Alan smiled for the first time in what felt like years. We're going to use the Kreen's own communication system against them. He pointed to the information William had provided. Their main array controls all their ships and ground forces. If we can hijack it for just 5 minutes, we can broadcast the plans worldwide. Every resistance cell, every person with a radio will receive instructions. And then? John asked. Then we all strike at once. The Kreen have never faced a coordinated, global resistance. They think we're just scattered groups causing minor damage. They don't understand that humans excel at adapting and overcoming. In her laboratory, Olivia Patterson secretly tested her latest formula. The compound she had developed amplified the effect of Daniel's frequency discovery by over 400%. Even a low-powered broadcast would now be devastating to the Kreen. Her, Kreen supervisor, entered the lab. What progress on human biological analysis? It demanded through its translator. I've documented human immune responses to different environmental factors, Olivia replied calmly, hiding her real work under more mundane papers. The data suggests humans are highly adaptable to changing conditions. The Kreen made a dismissive gesture with its upper arms. Irrelevant. Your species will not need to adapt further. Soon you will serve only as labor until resources are depleted. After the supervisor left, Olivia carefully packed a small vial of her compound. Tonight, during the shift change, she would smuggle it out to a resistance courier. This single vial could be the key to humanity's liberation. Admiral Laura Bennett peered through the periscope of the USS Defiance. The submarine had remained, hidden in the depths of the Pacific Ocean since the invasion began. Now it surfaced briefly, just long enough to receive encrypted communications from the resistance. Orders confirmed, she told her crew. We're to move into position near the Kreen orbital platform. When Operation Soundwave begins, we'll launch the modified missiles. Will they work, Admiral? Asked her executive officer. Laura studied the designs for the missiles now fitted with broadcasting devices instead of warheads. According to our scientists, they'll create a sound barrier around the Kreen command ships. Any alien caught within the field will be incapacitated. She looked at the calendar on the wall. 3 days until we launch. Make sure everyone knows their roles. This may be humanity's only chance. Across the world, resistance fighters prepared. In secret rooms, abandoned buildings, and underground bunkers, humans assembled devices following encrypted instructions. Speakers, amplifiers, and transmitters were gathered and modified. The Kreen noticed increased human activity, but dismissed it as meaningless. What harm could a primitive species do against their superior technology? They were about to find out. The morning of the attack was ordinary. The sun rose. Kreen patrols moved through city streets. Human workers lined up for their daily assignments. Nothing suggested today would be different from the countless days of occupation that came before. In Washington, D.C., William Carter attended his regular morning meeting with High Subjugator Vrax. The alien leader reviewed production reports from around the globe, occasionally making comments about inefficiency or increased quotas. The new harvesting machine is nearly complete, Vrax said. Soon we will accelerate resource collection. That's excellent news, Subjugator, William replied, his face showing only obedient pleasure. What time will the system come online? 1400 hours today. All Kreen forces will connect to the central network for the activation ceremony. William kept his expression neutral, but inside his heart raced. This was perfect. The aliens would all be connected to their central network at exactly 2 p.m. The resistance couldn't have planned it better. In Chicago, Karen Martinez double-checked the broadcasting device her team had built. It wasn't pretty, a mess of wires, speakers, and amplifiers cobbled together from salvaged electronics, but according to the specs, it would work. "Are the teams in position?" she asked Eric. He nodded. "We have 12 devices planted around the city, all near Kreen control centers. Each team is ready to activate on your signal." Karen looked at her watch. It was 11:30 a.m. 2.5 hours to go. Make sure everyone has their ear protection. When these things activate, they'll be loud. In underground bunkers, mountain hideouts, and secret rooms across the planet, resistance fighters checked their equipment and waited. The attack was set for exactly 2 p.m. Eastern Time, coordinated globally to hit the Kreen simultaneously, everywhere. Aboard the submarine USS Defiance, Admiral Laura Bennett reviewed the final launch preparations. The modified missiles were loaded and ready. Each contained a powerful broadcasting device, tuned to the specific frequency that affected Kreen biology. "All systems check complete, Admiral," reported her weapons officer. "Missiles are ready to launch." "Very good," Laura replied. "Surface the boat enough to receive the final confirmation signal, then prepare to launch on my command." The massive submarine rose just enough for its communication array to clear the water. Almost immediately, it received an encrypted message. "Operation Soundwave is go." Repeat, "Operation Soundwave is go." At the mountain base, Alan Wright gathered his team. They had loaded trucks with broadcasting equipment and weapons. Now they prepared to move out. "Our target is the Washington, D.C. Command Center," he told his fighters. "When the signal goes out and the Kreen are disoriented, we move in and secure the building. Our main objective is capturing high subjugator wracks." John Miller climbed into one of the trucks, looking uncomfortable in military gear. "Never thought I'd be heading into battle at my age," he said with a nervous smile. "You started this whole thing with your tractor," Alan reminded him. "It's only fitting you help finish it." In her laboratory, Olivia Patterson worked calmly while watching the clock. At 1:30 p.m., she excused herself to use the restroom. Instead of returning, she made her way to a supply closet where she had hidden a small broadcasting device enhanced with her special compound. The minutes ticked by. 1:45 p.m., 1:50 p.m., 1:55 p.m. At exactly 2:01 p.m. Eastern Time, William Carter was standing beside high subjugator wracks in the command center. Hundreds of Kreen officers were connected to the central network, preparing for the activation of their new harvesting system. William checked his watch and took 2 steps back, pulling small objects from his pocket and inserting them into his ears. Earplugs. Across the world, at exactly the same moment, thousands of broadcasting devices activated. From Chicago to Tokyo, London to Sydney, the carefully tuned frequency began to emit. To human ears, it sounded like a low, persistent hum, annoying but harmless. To the Kreen, it was devastating. In the Washington Command Center, Vrak suddenly twisted all 4 of his arms in strange angles. Other Kreen officers fell to the floor, their bodies shaking. The translation devices they used let out high-pitched squeals as the aliens made sounds no human had heard before. William watched as the mighty subjugator collapsed, all 4 hands clutching at his head. Then William ran to the central communication console and began entering the codes he had secretly memorized over months of spying. In Chicago, Karen and her team moved through streets filled with incapacitated Kreen soldiers. The aliens writhed. On the ground, unable to operate their weapons or communicate. Human workers stood in shock, watching their oppressors reduced to helpless creatures. "Move, people!" Karen shouted to the stunned workers. "This is your chance. The resistance is taking back the city." From the Pacific Ocean, the USS Defiance launched its missiles. They soared upward, targeting the Kreen ships in orbit. When they detonated, they released no explosive force. Instead, they created a field of sound that enveloped the alien vessels. Aboard the ships, Kreen crews found themselves unable to function, overcome by pain from the frequency that seemed to attack their nervous systems directly. Major Alan Wright led his team through the streets of Washington, D.C. They met no resistance, just incapacitated Kreen soldiers who couldn't even stand. They entered the command center to find William already there, working at the main console. "The network is open," William said. "I'm broadcasting the override codes to all resistance cells. They'll be able to shut down Kreen systems worldwide." Alan nodded and turned to where High Subjugator Vrax lay trembling on the floor. Secure him. He's our primary target. 4 soldiers moved forward and bound the alien leader with reinforced restraints. The frequency won't hold them forever, William warned. They'll adapt eventually. It doesn't need to hold forever, Alan replied. Just long enough to change the balance of power. Across the globe, the pattern repeated. Resistance fighters emerged from hiding and quickly secured key facilities while the Kreen were incapacitated. Human workers, seeing their opportunity, joined the resistance by the thousands. What had been small, scattered groups fighting against impossible odds suddenly became a coordinated global uprising. In orbit, Admiral Bennett received confirmation that the Kreen command ships were disabled. Move all teams to Phase 2, she ordered. Board the vessels and secure their control centers. Teams of resistance fighters trained in secret for months launched from hidden locations in small craft. They docked with the now defenseless Kreen ships and began taking control. By sunset, the impossible had happened. In a single day, humanity had gone from subjugated species to controlling most Kreen facilities on Earth and in orbit. In Washington, Alan Wright and William Carter stood over the still trembling form of High Subjugator Vrax. Turn off the device, Alan ordered. A soldier deactivated the broadcaster, and the painful frequency stopped. Vrax's trembling slowly subsided. The alien leader looked up at the humans surrounding him, his translator struggling to function. Impossible, the device finally translated. How primitive beings. Alan looked down at the alien who had ordered humanity to kneel, who had treated humans as nothing more than labor resources to be used and discarded. You made a mistake, Alan said simply. You judged us by our technology, not by our determination. You thought because you could destroy islands and cities we would give up. But humans don't surrender so easily. Vrax's dark eyes blinked rapidly. What will you do now? Alan smiled grimly. Now we discuss your surrender terms. 3 days after Operation Soundwave, the remains of the United Nations building in New York hosted an unusual meeting. Where once world leaders had gathered to discuss human affairs, now they sat across from alien representatives. The human delegation was led by Major Alan Wright, Dr. Olivia Patterson, and Admiral Laura Bennett. William Carter stood slightly apart, having served as the chief negotiator during the preliminary discussions. The Kreen delegation looked very different from when they had first arrived on Earth. Gone was their arrogance and certainty. Their forearms no longer moved with confident gestures. Instead, they sat stiffly, aware of the broadcasting devices positioned around the room, inactive for now, but ready to be turned on at any moment. Subcommander Kell, now the highest-ranking Kreen officer since Vrax's capture, spoke through a translator. We are prepared to discuss your terms, he said, his dark eyes moving nervously toward the broadcasting equipment. Alan nodded to William, who stepped forward with a tablet. These are non-negotiable, William said, sliding the tablet across the table. Complete withdrawal of all Kreen forces from Earth, return of all human prisoners, transfer of basic technology as reparations. Kell examined the document, then looked up. And if we refuse? Olivia smiled slightly. We've installed broadcasting devices on all your ships. We've miniaturized the technology to the point where it can be mass-produced. Every human on Earth could carry one within a month. Your entire species would be perpetually vulnerable, Admiral Bennett added. Or you can accept our terms and leave in peace. The alien representatives conferred among themselves in their clicking language. Finally, Kell turned back to the humans. We accept your terms. The Kreen Dominion will withdraw from Earth space within 10 Earth days. Later that evening, as the human leaders celebrated in what remained of a New York hotel, Alan found Olivia standing alone on a balcony, looking at the damaged skyline. Having second thoughts? He asked, joining her. She shook her head. Just thinking about how close we came to losing everything. If John's tractor hadn't made that noise at just the right moment. That's humanity's greatest strength, Alan said. We find solutions in unexpected places. The Kreen thought superior. Technology meant automatic victory. They didn't understand that sometimes the simplest tools are the most effective. Across the country, farmer John Miller stood on his porch watching the stars. One of those points of light was moving, a Kreen ship leaving Earth orbit. He sipped his coffee and smiled to himself. His old tractor sat in the yard, still broken, and making that strange chugging noise that had started everything. A car pulled up the dusty driveway. Karen Martinez and Eric Dawson stepped out, having driven all the way from Chicago. "There he is," Karen said with a wide smile. "The man who helped save the world with a broken tractor?" John shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. "I just noticed something strange. Alan and Olivia did the real work." "We all did the real work," Eric replied, shaking John's hand. "Every person who fought back, who didn't accept defeat." In Washington, D.C., William Carter supervised the removal of Kreen technology from government buildings. The aliens had agreed to leave behind certain systems as part of the reparations: clean energy generators, water purification devices, and medical equipment. "What will happen to Vrax?" asked Mary Phillips, who had helped run the resistance. "Communication network. He'll return with the last Kreen ship," William replied. "As a changed leader, I suspect. It's not every day that an empire's view of a primitive species gets completely overturned." Inside a secure facility, High Subjugator Verac sat in a specially designed holding cell. Dr. Daniel Clark entered carrying a small broadcasting device. "Don't worry," Daniel said when he saw the alien flinch. "It's turned off. I just wanted you to see our latest version." He placed the device on the table. It was no larger than a cell phone. "Your species is remarkable," Vrac said finally. "We have conquered 12 worlds across 3 star systems. None ever resisted effectively. They didn't have to kneel to stand tall," Daniel replied. "When you force someone to their knees, you give them no choice but to fight back." In orbit, Admiral Bennett walked through the captured Kreen flagship, now under human control. Engineers studied the alien systems, already adapting the technology for human use. "We'll be ready to test the drive system next week," reported her chief engineer. "Based on what we've learned, we could reach Mars in days rather than months." Laura nodded, looking at the stars through a viewport. "They wanted our resources, but they gave us something more valuable: a unified Earth and the means to reach beyond it." 1 week later, the leaders of Earth's nations gathered again, this time to sign a new document, the Earth Defense and Exploration Treaty. For the first time in human history, national differences were set aside in favor of a unified approach to protecting the planet and expanding into space. At the signing ceremony, Dr. Olivia Patterson presented the latest research on Kreen technology. "We've only begun to understand their systems," she explained. "But what we've learned already has advanced our science by decades, maybe centuries." Major Alan Wright, now General Wright of the new Earth Defense Force, addressed the assembly. "The Kreen came to take from us. They leave having given us more than they intended: unity, determination, and a place among the stars." In Montana, John Miller planted a new crop of wheat. The galaxy might be filled with advanced civilizations and strange technologies, but Earth still needed farmers. He looked up as a shadow passed overhead, one of the modified Kreen ships, now painted with Earth colors, heading toward the moon. 6 months after the Kreen surrender, a message arrived from deep space. It was from the Kreen Dominion, formally recognizing Earth as a sovereign and equal power. Included was an invitation to join an interstellar council of civilizations. William Carter, now Earth's first ambassador to other worlds, read the message with a smile. It was addressed simply, "To the unbreakable people of Earth." In the rebuilt Oval Office, President Susan Reyes signed the response. It had been her farm equipment company that had built John Miller's tractor all those years ago. Now she led a united Earth, taking its first steps into a larger universe. "They commanded us to kneel," she said as she signed the document. "We forced them to beg. And now, we all stand together." The message was transmitted into space, carrying humanity's voice to the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals who had earned their place through ingenuity, cooperation, and the stubborn refusal to surrender when all seemed lost. Night fell over a healing Earth. Humanity looked to the stars not with fear but with newfound confidence. They had faced the universe's challenges and proven their worth. And if threatened again, they would be ready.